Have you ever felt an overwhelming pull towards someone you knew you couldn't have? Not just attraction, not just infatuation, but a kind of magnetic force that defies logic. But you knew the relationship couldn't work. Maybe they were in love with someone else. Maybe you were. Maybe they lived halfway across the world. Maybe the timing was impossible. Maybe they were toxic. Maybe you were. But still, you couldn't stop thinking about them. You couldn't stop feeling them. It was as if your soul recognized theirs even if reality refused to cooperate. Carl Jung would tell you this: that kind of obsession isn't random. It's not just hormones. It's not just projection. It's symbolic. That person you can't have. They represent something far deeper than a romantic partner. They are a mirror of your unconscious, or a carrier of your shadow, a spark that ignites parts of you you've long forgotten, suppressed, or never dared to explore. And the reason you're so drawn to them is because, in some mysterious way, they are showing you you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This is where it begins, not with romance, but with projection. Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And no reaction transforms us more radically than the ones we can't consummate. The fantasy relationship, the forbidden love, the impossible union. Because in those moments, we're not just in love with a person, we're in love with a symbol. And that symbol carries all the parts of ourselves that we haven't yet integrated. Let's break this down. Jung believed that every person carries within them the archetype of the Anima, or Animus, the inner feminine or masculine image that shapes how we relate to others. This inner image is formed early in life, often by our relationship with our parents or early emotional experiences. And when we meet someone who resembles this inner image emotionally, energetically, spiritually, we experience something that feels like fate. It's not fate, it's recognition. A part of you sees a part of yourself in them, often a part you've forgotten how to touch. So why are we drawn to the person we can't be with? Because they awaken something we believe we've lost. Something we don't yet know how to claim. It could be freedom, passion, depth, danger, vulnerability, authenticity. Sometimes it's not the person we want, it's what they represent. They become a stand-in for the unlived life. The self we've buried beneath duty, fear, or conformity. And because we don't know how to access that part directly, we chase it through them. Let me ask you something that should stop you in your tracks. What is it about this person that stirs something ancient in you? Not surface-level attraction. I'm talking about the ache and the haunting. The part that keeps showing up in dreams or daydreams or songs that shouldn't make you cry but do. And that person is holding a key, not to your future with them, but to the part of you you've abandoned. Jung called this phenomenon the shadow dance. When we fall for someone who is wildly incompatible, or unavailable, or even unhealthy, it often means they are carrying a piece of our shadow. They embody a trait we've disowned. Maybe they're rebellious, and you've always played it safe. Maybe they're emotionally raw, and you've always been stoic. Maybe they live without apology, and you've been apologizing for your existence since childhood. Whatever it is, they awaken your shadow not to haunt you, but to initiate you. And this is where the danger lies, because if we don't understand this dynamic, We start to chase the person instead of integrating the part of ourselves they reflect. We try to possess the symbol instead of decoding it. And in doing so, we lose ourselves. We romanticize the impossible. We suffer. We spiral. We say things like they complete me, or I can't live without them, not realizing that what we're really saying is, but I don't know how to be whole without the part of me they've awakened. So, what's the solution? Jung would say, withdraw the projection. Turn inward. Ask, what is this person showing me about myself? What part of me is trying to come alive? This is the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole. It's not about getting the person. It's about getting yourself back. Let me give you an example. Say you're drawn to someone deeply creative, wild, spontaneous, expressive. But your life is structured, responsible, controlled. You admire their freedom, but it terrifies you. Still, you fantasize about them constantly. You want to be near them. You imagine escaping your life with them. But what if the real message isn't be with them? What if it's be more like them? What if your soul is using them to remind you of a part of yourself you've locked away? That's the shift. That's the awakening. When you stop asking, how do I get them? And start asking, what are they here to teach me about myself? And when you answer that truthfully, the energy changes. The obsession fades. The ache softens. Because you're no longer chasing a ghost, you're retrieving your soul. But beware, this process is not clean. It's not about cutting off your feelings or pretending you don't care. It's about feeling fully and then reclaiming wisely. You can still love someone from afar. You can still hold space for the beauty they showed you, but you no longer let that love own you. You let it guide you back to yourself. Let me ask you one more thing, and don't answer too quickly. What if the person you can't be with was never meant to be yours, but was always meant to be your mirror? What if they appeared not to complete your journey, but to ignite it? Because here's what Jung teaches that most people never realize. The most important relationships in your life aren't always the ones you keep. Sometimes they're the ones that break you open, or that confuse you, that haunt you, that force you to confront the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. And when you face those parts, claim them and integrate them, you become whole. And a whole person doesn't chase symbols, they embody them. That is the real love story, not between you and them, but between you and the self you meet through them. The Anima and the Animus, how your inner masculine and feminine shape who you love and why. Carl Jung believed that within every man lives a hidden feminine image, the Anima. And within every woman dwells a hidden masculine image, the Animus. These are not genders. They are psychic blueprints, archetypal energies that shape how we connect, desire, and fall in love. But here's the twist. Most of us are completely unaware of how these inner figures influence not just who we're attracted to, but why. And when we don't make them conscious, they take over our relationships like puppeteers, pulling strings from the shadows. The person you can't be with, the one who haunts you, the one you feel you need, they're often not just a person. They are a projection of your anima or animus. And if we don't understand this, we confuse psychological need with romantic destiny. We chase people who carry our inner blueprint instead of realizing that they are only showing us what we've failed to develop in ourselves. Imagine this. You're drawn to someone deeply intuitive, nurturing, emotionally fluid. But you feel seen, held, or spiritually recognized. That's the anima at work, your inner feminine longing to be integrated. Or maybe you're transfixed by someone fiercely logical, assertive, principled. They seem to embody clarity, direction, purpose. That's the animus calling the inner masculine you've neglected or idealized. And when these inner figures haven't been acknowledged, when they're still unconscious, we project them outward. We don't fall in love with people, we fall in love with symbols. But we fall in love with our own missing pieces, dressed in someone else's skin. And the tragedy is this: we think we need them, but what we truly need is to become whole. Let's go deeper. Jung taught that the anima and animus develop through our earliest experiences with the opposite parent. If your mother was cold or emotionally unavailable, your anima may remain underdeveloped, causing you to chase emotionally intense or chaotic partners, hoping to finally feel what you never received. If your father was distant or domineering, your animus may become distorted, either overly aggressive or passive, leading you to attract partners who mirror that imbalance. These inner figures are not fixed, they are shaped by experience, by culture, by trauma. And until we bring them into the light, they dominate us. They shape our attractions. They sabotage our relationships. They whisper, "This person will complete you," when in reality, no one can complete what you haven't first claimed within. Now ask yourself something powerful, maybe even dangerous. What traits are you constantly seeking in others that you haven't cultivated in yourself? Do you chase emotional safety because you don't give it to yourself? Do you seek strength in others because you've disowned your own power? Do you romanticize mystery because you've lost touch with your own depths? These questions aren't meant to shame, they're meant to free. Because the moment you realize that your love life is a mirror of your psyche, you stop blaming others. You stop chasing ghosts. You begin the real work, integration. To integrate the anima means reconnecting with your inner softness, creativity, intuition, empathy regardless of gender. It means learning to sit with emotion, to flow with the unknown, to embrace tenderness without fear. To integrate the animus means stepping into clarity, direction, inner authority, discernment. It means learning to hold boundaries, to think critically, to act with courage. When these energies are balanced inside of you, everything changes. You stop idealizing others. You stop turning people into saviors or demons. You begin to relate as an equal, not from lack, but from completeness. And that's where real love begins. But here's the part no one tells you: integrating these parts hurts. Because it requires letting go of the fantasy. It requires grieving the relationships that were never really about the other person, but about what they awakened in you. It means accepting that the person you couldn't be with was never the answer, but a reflection of a question you hadn't yet dared to ask. What part of me have I abandoned to feel loved? And when you answer that, when you stop outsourcing your wholeness, you become someone entirely different. You become someone who no longer falls for intensity disguised as connection. Someone who no longer confuses projection for partnership. And someone who doesn't chase but chooses. Because now the anima or animus isn't an unconscious puppet master, it's a conscious companion. But a source of inner wisdom that helps you navigate love with clarity and depth. So the next time you find yourself obsessing over someone you can't be with, pause, breathe, and ask, what are they showing me about me? What do they carry that I've forgotten how to hold? What part of my psyche is screaming to be remembered, honored, lived? Because once you answer that, truly answer that, you can stop begging the world to give you what your soul is already capable of creating. And then something extraordinary happens. You stop needing others to carry your missing pieces. You start attracting people who reflect your wholeness, not your wounds. And those relationships, they don't feel like fireworks. They feel like home. From obsession to integration, how to reclaim your power and end the cycle for good. Now we arrive at the final stage of the journey, the one most people never reach. Because it's one thing to understand why you're drawn to the person you can't be with. It's another thing to move beyond understanding and transform that emotional pattern at its root. Obsession is powerful. It can hijack your thoughts, override your logic, and even replace your sense of identity with a single desire to have the one you can't have. But according to Carl Jung, obsession isn't the enemy, it's a signal. It's not madness, it's meaning, compressed into a loop your psyche doesn't yet know how to break. And the only way to end that loop is through integration, the conscious process of reclaiming what you've projected, healing what you've disowned, and returning to yourself as a sovereign, whole being who no longer needs another person to feel complete. To do this, we must first understand what obsession really is. Obsession is the ego's way of avoiding the deeper work. It gives you a target, a fantasy, a future to chase so you don't have to sit with the pain of what's missing inside. The person you can't be with becomes a placeholder for something sacred you've lost touch with, your own inner truth. And that's why the obsession feels so heavy, so sticky, so impossible to escape. Because your psyche is trying to wake you up through the very thing that's causing you pain. Jung would tell you, when a feeling refuses to leave, it's not demanding fulfillment, it's demanding attention. Something deeper wants to be seen. And until you stop chasing the person and start listening to the message, the loop will continue. The faces will change. The ache will remain. So how do we begin the work of integration? First, we must practice radical self-honesty, but not surface-level journaling, not spiritual bypassing, but a deep, unflinching inquiry. What role does this person play in your psyche? What do they represent to you? What emotions do they stir that you've been avoiding? Often, the person we can't be with represents an ideal self, a version of us that's more free, more alive, more whole. And instead of becoming that version, we become addicted to the one who reflects it back to us. This is the trap. This is the illusion. The way out is to stop projecting and start embodying. Stop waiting for them to give you the feeling and become the source of it yourself. Second, we must grieve. Not just the loss of the person, but the loss of the fantasy. The illusion that they were the answer, that they were the one. That if circumstances had only been different, everything would have worked out. This is the hardest part, because it means letting go of the story you've been telling yourself about what could have been, what should have been, what might still be. But Jung would remind you, every fantasy you release creates space for your truth to emerge. And your truth is not found in someone else's arms. It's found in the quiet moment when you finally realize, I no longer need to be saved. I just need to be seen by myself. And third, and most crucially, you must reclaim the qualities you've projected onto them. This is the essence of Jungian integration. If they were bold, where can you be more bold? If they were emotionally open, where are you still closed? If they lived with passion, where have you settled for numbness? The person you can't be with is not your destiny, they are your mirror. And that mirror is only painful until you realize that everything you saw in them was always inside you. You just didn't believe it yet. And this is where the real transformation begins. When you stop chasing them and start becoming what they awakened. When you stop needing their presence to feel alive and start generating your own aliveness from within. You begin to move differently, speak differently. You stop contorting yourself to be chosen, but you start choosing yourself. And in doing so, you shift the entire energetic pattern of your life. You're no longer drawn to what you can't have. You're drawn to what reflects your wholeness, not your hunger. But don't be mistaken, this isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming centered. It's about knowing that love, real love, doesn't come from obsession. It comes from resonance, from two whole people meeting not to complete each other, but to amplify each other. That kind of love doesn't create chains, it creates space. And you can't find it if you're still chasing the ghost of a person who was never meant to stay. Let me ask you one final question, and really sit with it. What would your life look like if you stopped pouring your energy into someone who isn't here and started pouring it into becoming the person you were always meant to be? And that version of you is waiting, not on the other side of a relationship, but on the other side of a choice, the choice to end the cycle, to integrate the obsession, and to finally come home to yourself. Because the truth is, you don't need to be with the person who broke you open. You just need to become the person who grew from it. That's what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation. Not perfection, not fantasy, but wholeness. And when you arrive there, when you become the one who no longer needs the fantasy, you don't just end the obsession. You end the pattern. You become free.